Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we're being joined by Kyle Bullock, author of Crisis Proof Your Small or At-Home Business. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul, thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
Let's do this.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would say to first-time authors especially to know your audience and to focus on who you're writing to. Realize that your book is not going to be for everybody. And in fact, knowing who your book is not for can be really helpful because it helps you approach how you're going to write. You're going to know who you're writing to. And remember that you might only need 1,000 people in the world to buy your book for it to be successful, or 10,000. There's not that many people who may need to buy your book to be successful. And when you are focused on writing to that group, you can write something really useful and really interesting for that group of people, and that will catch their attention.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think that it can be the number of rejections you're going to get from everything from publishers to agents to customers. You're going to get told no and no thank you, or get no response at all. You're going to get that a lot. Every time it happens, I think you should learn from it and focus on what is working, focus on where you're finding momentum with your projects, and allow that to build you and build your character, not defeat you.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
So I'm going to reiterate what I said about first pieces of advice to new authors, and that is to know your audience. So, for example, my audience for this book in particular is small business leaders, and I work in the jewelry industry as well, and I have a lot of contacts in the jewelry industry. So one of the most successful ways for me to get out in front of them is actually to create workshops with those small business owners within that industry. So I'll orchestrate whether an in-person workshop or a web workshop where I can sit down with a focused number of people who'd be interested in what I'm writing, and then I can take bits of what I've written and kind of workshop that with them or discuss that with them in that environment. What that does is it allows them to know me as an author and a creator, and not just the work that I've created. So they get plugged in not just to what I've written today, but what I will write tomorrow and what I've written in the past. And for example, I recently did a workshop in Atlanta with this, and it was 20 people in the room, and from that, almost all of them were buying books and material from me that day and in the future, and led to future sales. So know your audience and create experiences around that audience that would appeal to them, that get to know you as an author.
And speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
This is an impossible question. I can't pick one. So I'm going to give you a fiction and a nonfiction.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Fiction was probably point to Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. I read that book at the early stages of my writing career, and the very first book that I wrote, called The Coward, is a fiction novel, and I was largely influenced by Catch-22 because of its structure, its unique structure, its unique way to tell a story. It's funny, but it's also got some dark moments and some moments that are heavy that carry the story through. I learned a lot about structure in that book, and I love it. So Catch-22 is my fiction. Currently, my nonfiction changes all the time, but currently I would say Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I'm listening to that right now on Audible, and it's a great book that's helped me remind me, especially in a trying time that we're in right now, about living with mission and purpose. When you feel like you're adrift and not sure what to do, Start with your why. What compels you? For me, my why is helping people create cherished memories and build relationships in their lives, and that has led to a lot of projects in my life. And And so that's been a very influential book right now.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote is from actually a colleague of mine, somebody who works in my office here, and he always says, almost every day, he says, "It's all good." You say, "Dennis, how's life today? What's going on with you?" Even in a very trying circumstance, he goes, "Man, it's all good." And you ask him, "Why do you say it's all good?" And he says, "Because no matter what you're going through, no matter how hard or trying it is, if you're willing to look, it's all about perspective. You're going to find something that's good, and you realize, man, it's all good. Life, a lot of life is about perspective." And so I would say that's probably my favorite quote, especially in times like these.
Excellent. Well, Kyle, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
First of all, thanks for having me. If people want to connect with me online, you can go to kylerBullock.com. You can see all of my fiction and my nonfiction. I'm also a voiceover artist for people who want their books recorded, and I have all of that on there as well. You can link up with me on social media at kylerBullock.com.
Kyle, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thanks, Paul. You take care.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.